Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be talking about polymer clay the easy way. We are going to show you a brand new exciting way to make jewelry out of polymer clay that is the simplest you could possibly imagine. For years, people have tried to make beautiful patterns in polymer clay, and it's very time consuming and tedious. And we have found the ultimate shortcut for you. So my name is Stephanie Menor. I'm going to be your instructor today, and we're going to be making a whole bunch of earring projects that are going to be done in an hour. So let's switch to the top-down camera here. Ooh, here we go. So here's a little preview of some things that we're going to be making. So you can see we're hanging on to summer with the bright colors today. And we have polymer clay earrings that have these patterns in them. The patterns are not just surface patterns, they go all the way through. It's made of clay. So you can see the side and the back, that pattern goes all the way through. This is based on a brand new product that's in Michael's in the jewelry making department right now. And it looks like this. And it is pre-patterned polymer clay. This has never been done before. And it's very exciting once you see this in Michael's. So you'll see that there are 40 plus different patterns to choose from. I'm going to show you a few of them here. These are the patterns that we use to make the earrings that you see here. And so this is what the polymer clay looks like. This is your standard oven bake polymer clay. So you do need to bake this in an oven, a toaster oven, a convection oven. Here's some clouds. And we have a couple different checkerboards. Now, if you are a seasoned polymer clay artist and you've tried to make a checkerboard pattern, you know how difficult that is. It requires a lot of very precise cuts and lining up, and it's just very time consuming. So here we've done all that hard work for you, and all you have to do is create with it. All right, so here's some examples. I'm going to move this off to the side and talk about supplies that you need to do this. Is anyone crafting along with us? If you are, I'd love to hear about it in the chat. Also, if you have any questions, ask them in the chat. So the first thing that I have, this is a ceramic tile. It has a smooth top. This actually came out of my bathroom remodel, which is why it has some chips in it. But at your local home improvement store, you can pick up one of these. It is so much easier when you use a smooth ceramic tile when you're working with polymer clay, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. So that's the first thing that I have here. The second thing that I have are tools. So these are all bought together in a tool set at Michael's. Let me bring this up a little bit so we can see. Okay, so a few different tools. So first of all, in the basic tool set, you can get an acrylic roller. This one's hollow. So this is how you roll your clay out. This is for poking holes in the clay, a sharp little owl. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And then a whole bunch of these tools. And the cool thing about these tools is that they're double-sided. So this one, for example, has this on one side and this on the other side. That's kind of, you can see it better from the side. Here, this one has like a flat edge, and this has more of a domed edge. These are great for adding texture or cutting your clay. Also in that tool set is this blade. So if you have bought the tool set at Michael's, this is the blade. It is very sharp. I will tell you that. So I'll show you how this is used for picking up the clay, transferring it to another spot. So those are sort of the basic tools. We also have some thickness guides. You can see that these are marked 4.5 mm. That's millimeters. If you are a jewelry maker, you know so many things in jewelry making go by millimeters instead of by inches. And so this helps you to roll out your clay to an even thickness. So I'll show you how that works. Also, I have a baking sheet here. This is a 1/4 sheet pan, but you can use any size, any shape. And this is a piece of parchment paper. So when you go to bake the clay, you're either going to transfer it onto something like this, a parchment paper lined baking sheet, or, and what I like to do because, you know, simpler is easier, this tile can just go into your oven. And that way you don't have to transfer the clay here and there. Just put the tile directly into your oven. All right, so that's a quick rundown of the tools. And of course you'll need clay. So as I said, this comes in lots of different patterns, 40 different patterns, and it also comes with some coordinating solid colors, right in the same section in the jewelry making department at Michael's. And so these solids come with 3 different sort of ombre colors in there. Let's see, let's open up. I'm going to start with this cloud pattern. I'm going to open the box right here along with you. And you'll see when this comes out, first of all, there are instructions. And this is what the clay looks like. You can see that pattern goes all the way through. These are completely made by hand by artisans, and they are doing all the hard work for you in creating these really cool patterns. So that is, I just took that. That is inside this like little acetate thing. Don't throw this away. This is very handy for storing your clay so that it won't get dry. And then it's also inside this little plastic. So as I take this out, I'm being very careful not to gouge my fingernails in there, not to get any animal hair or human hair on it. And there it is. There is our pattern slab. Like I said, I'm going to hang on to this for storage. So the first thing that you want to do is roll this out. So it comes at about a 5 mm thickness. These thickness guides that I have here are 4.5 mm, so we're just really reducing it just slightly. You can roll this out thinner. You can roll this out. The other thickness guide size that comes in the pack, you get 2 of them, is a 3 mm size. So you can roll it out to 3 mm. I'm just going to roll to about 4.5 mm because I want to show you how these thickness guides work. Then we have our acrylic roller. What I like to do, and I didn't list this in my supplies a second ago, I have a little thing of cornstarch over here. This is like the magic non-sticking agent. So I'm going to take a little cornstarch and put that on my roller. I can actually just put it on the top of the clay too, just being gentle. You don't want to gouge that with anything. Okay, and so that's how we make sure that we don't have a lot of sticking. And so I can just start rolling up and down. And as you roll this out, the pattern is going to expand. So you may start with clouds that are teeny tiny, and depending on how much you roll it out, it will expand. So I'm turning it a 1/4 turn because I don't want to just expand that pattern in one direction. I want to expand it in all directions so that it retains the cloud look. All right, so I can feel when I've hit plastic, so I can feel now that this is rolled out evenly to 4.5 mm. I could continue rolling kind of free form to get this whatever thickness that I want. All right, so that's the first step, is rolling it out. So if I tilt this up, I wonder if you can see, it's still fairly thick. It will stay that thickness in the oven. The oven does not change it should not change the color, and it should not change the shape or anything about it in baking. So when that goes into the oven, it looks exactly how it should look coming out of the oven. All right, so that's the rolling. Then I get to pick some really fun cutters. These are what the cutters look like in stores. And we have them grouped together so that you're getting many different shapes that work together. So for example, these circles here, you can already see how these are laying in the package. This would make a beautiful earring with sort of a larger shape on the bottom and a smaller shape on top. Same thing with those triangles. Let me show you another cutter set. This has 17 different cutters in it, which is a great value, but it has some really, really tiny babies in here and some fun shapes down here. So let me just set this to the side for a sec. Show you all of these fun cutters that I have so that we can pick out some shapes. So our earring, let's see. I think that I'm going to do, I love this shape, so I think I'm going to do this shape. Some arches. And then I want to pick a shape to go on top of this. So maybe this shape would look nice together. Or I can pick a flower shape. Is that, oh, let me move this up. Flower shape on top, a heart shape. So this for me, this is the fun. This is the fun of it all, is choosing. You're a jewelry designer. You're designing what your jewelry is going to look like. So here we have 3 daisies. I also like the arch with this sort of semi-arch on top, so I think I'm going to do these. All right, let's bring this back over. And my cornstarch, bring that over. Here's another quick tip is your cutters, you want to dip them in cornstarch. They are, these are very sharp. They are made of plastic. They have this ergonomic edge here for you to press down so you don't hurt your fingers. But they will stick a little bit. So just dip them in some cornstarch first. And then, dip them in some cornstarch. And then you can lay that on your clay and look through to see if you like that placement. So depending on how you want those clouds to show inside, you can kind of move this around. I like the way this looks here. And then I just press down. And I'm kind of going to shimmy that out. And it should do that. So let me make another one. Again, dipping in the cornstarch. I'm going to turn this. No, I'm not going to turn it around because those clouds have a top and a bottom. So here we go. All right, so let's do a couple of these guys here, this arch shape. And I'm just going to continue placing and then cutting. So when you use your cutter, you can also bring your roller in here and use that to kind of push the cutter down if you want to make sure that you are pressing evenly. Otherwise, you know, I just want to make sure I'm pressing this middle part and all along the sides, and then I can kind of shimmy it out. Okay. And I can fill up the rest of this with other patterns. You know, I can let's make a little small guy here. I want to make sure that cloud shows right in the middle of my cut. Okay. Let's do a couple others over here. All right, and then you would fill this whole thing up with cuts. And this is a wonderful way to make a whole collection of jewelry. If we have any makers out there that sell their jewelry, you know, everyone is gearing up for those fall craft fairs and craft markets. This is a great way to make an entire collection of matching jewelry that is very, very simple to do. All right, so you would fill that up, cut as many pieces as you want. I think that I've shown you sufficiently, so I'm not going to do that. And then this is the beauty of working on a ceramic tile, is I can just kind of, I can just pick up the excess so that my cut pieces are going to stay on the tile. So I'm just carefully removing the excess. And this we are going to use again. I will show you how to do that, but for now I'm just going to push this off to the side. All right, so here are our shapes. These are ready to go in the oven. I could brush a little bit of that cornstarch off if I wanted to. I don't have to do that because I can always brush that off after it bakes. So this tile goes directly into the oven. Now, if you are not working with a tile and you need to transfer to a piece of parchment paper, I want to show you how to do that. And you want to do that using a sharp blade tool like this. All right. The first time you use this blade tool, I'm going to give you a little tip here. You might want to take some clay. I'm just going to pick off some clay here. And you can make like handholds for yourself out of clay. I like to do this because one side of this is very, very sharp and one side isn't. You can make little handholds for your clay and then just pop this in the oven, and then you have these perfect little handholds. Okay, so if I need to transfer this from one surface to another, let's say I need to transfer it onto some parchment paper, I want to hold my blade here and kind of squiggle, is that a word, this under the clay and carefully move that to the parchment paper. So again, this helps you to avoid getting your fingernails in there, getting, you know, making the clay sort of misshapen in any way. Just kind of get that under there and then put it on the parchment. If it sticks, I'm trying to gently, gently release that. Okay. Now, so this, either the parchment paper goes on a baking sheet or your whole ceramic tile goes into the oven. So let's talk a little bit about ovens. So your oven temperature is rarely accurate to what is actually going on inside your oven. You want to make sure you are working with a very well preheated oven because that will help to eliminate any hot spots that are in there. And if you are a maker and you are doing this day in, day out, you might want to invest in an oven thermometer so you can verify that what temperature you're setting at is actually occurring inside that oven. So when you do go bake this, this is baked at 20 minutes, 250 degrees. So it's a fairly cool oven. And so that's what allows us to put things like our metal blade in there. And so the what happens in the oven is that some magic happens inside this polymer clay, and it melts the polymers that are inside this clay. And what you come out with is this is a piece of cooked clay, baked clay. What you come out with is a very springy, bendable clay. If your clay comes out of the oven and it cools and it's crispy, or if it breaks easily, usually that means that you have not baked it long enough. So I would always err on the side of over baking instead of under baking. Under baking, it can make some some polymer clay that can, it's not fully gone through that polymerization process of melting those polymers. So it'll still be easily breakable. So properly baked polymer clay will be nice and pliable like this. All right, so let me move this off to the side. 250 degrees, 20 minutes, and then allow it to cool completely. And then you will have some things that look like these. So I've already baked all of these. And it just so happens that a couple of our patterns match up together beautifully. This checkerboard pattern and the cloud pattern work well together. If I wanted to also have some components in a solid color, that's where these matching clays come into play. So we've made it very easy for you to be a jewelry designer and put together pieces that that look great together. So to that point, let's play around here. So obviously this and this would look great as an earring. I also like this and this as an earring. How about this with this and this turned around? That looks kind of cool. So this is where the fun is kind of creating your own. I even like this. This is a little bit of a more modern look. So once these are cooled out of the oven, then you can decide what your earring is going to look like. Let's see, do I want to do this? No, this. How about this? I kind of like those together. Now mine are already have the hole through them, but I'm going to show you how to do that. You can make the hole before or after. So I'm going to show you both. So before cooking, let me move this little guy. Before cooking, if you prefer to make the hole that way, you want to take a sharp tool, and you have to kind of already know how these pieces are going to put together and know where you want your holes to be. So here, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, I'm just gonna pop that in there, and I am just making a hole. That hole will remain during baking. So that's one way to do it. Like I said, I prefer to make the holes after they come out of the oven. So I'm going to show you using this piece of baked clay how to make a hole in this. If you have a Dremel, an electric drill of some kind, that will obviously work very easily. If you do not, you need to use a hand drill. So this hand drill is also sold in the jewelry making department in the UV resin section. We're going to talk briefly about UV resin here in a minute, but this is a very simple tool to use. This part spins and this part spins. And so I want to place that tool in my hand and find the spot on here, and I just twist. And you can see, I'm trying to do this so you can see, it only takes a few seconds, and that is drilled through there. And then go opposite to just bring it out. And that makes a perfectly shaped. This drill, there are additional size bits, but this I believe is a 1.5 or 2 mm bit. And so it just makes the perfect jewelry size hole in there. So why do I like drilling that hole afterwards rather than before? Well, it's so that I can do this fun playing thing, and so that I can have some creativity and then know where I need those holes to be. So this earring that I've set up here, I know that I need a hole here, here, and here. These two to connect these two shapes together, and this top hole so that we can accept a finding like this, an earring finding. All right. Now the finding that will connect these two is called a jump ring. These are the basic building blocks of earrings. And I will show you how to connect those right now. So first, let's connect these two shapes. You want to use a jump ring, and you'll need sort of a larger jump ring. This one is an 8 mm size. And all of the jump rings have a break in them, and I can see that break. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that that's right at the top. So I want to go in with 2 pliers on the opposite sides of that break. And I want to bring one toward me and one away from me. That opens the jump ring. And when it's open, then I can slide this on through the hole that I made. Kind of twist that to get in there, and also slide this on. Whoa. And so you'll have to kind of shimmy that around. And I just want to make sure when I'm going to place this on the jump ring that my front sides are facing out. The pattern is on the front and the back, but you will have a flatter back. That's what it baked on. And I just like my flatter backs to both be in the back. All right, so I put both pieces on there. Now I need to close the jump ring in the opposite direction of what I just did. And that's how I connect 2 shapes together. All right, so to put this on the top, I need another jump ring. So here's another one. I'm going to go through those same steps of finding where the break is, opening it up. I'm going to feed it through here. And then I add this finding and close it up. And I do want to make sure that those 2 pieces match back up, because I don't want that earring finding to be able to get through there. And there we go. We have a finished earring. So this one was fairly simple because I only had to make 3 holes. There are lots of examples, and I have some examples here that I am just going to show you. This is from our last class. We did more sort of natural colorways, and I want to show you this earring. So this has 3 different parts to it, and these parts are connected on the sides. So I need 2 holes, 2 holes, 2 holes, 1 hole for that. Here's another shape where you just need 3 holes. Here's another arch. Okay, so that is if you want your earring to have an ear hook that looks like that. If you want your earring to have, instead of being an ear hook at the top, you want it to have a stud on the back. Let's talk about that and how to do this. All right, so let me get a piece of clay here that I'm going to put a stud on. Let's go back to my leopard print here. Leopard print is another really fun pattern that is at Michael's. And you can make just simple stud earrings out of this. And let me show you how to do it. So to make that into a stud earring, you need a special finding. This is usually called like a flat pad finding or a flat stud. So it's got like a pad on the top, a little circle of flatness. And we need to glue that onto the back like this, so that we can wear this as a stud earring. All right, so to do that, you want to use, there's a lot of different ways to do this. The way I'm going to show you is with super glue. So let me open this, and just a tiny little dot is all you need. You can also use a metal glue like E6000 works great for this. And then just put that pad in there. I'm kind of working it around a little bit because I want to make sure that glue is over the top of the edges. And then let's see, it's already grabbed, but you can see where I've situated that pad sort of toward the top of this, because I just think that will look better on the ear. And that's how you add a flat pad to the back. You obviously want to let this dry. Okay. All right, let's make some more here. Let's bring another pattern out. Now this pattern doesn't necessarily have a direction to it. So you could use it up and down. You could use it this way. And here's what this clay looks like. And from the side. And you want to get this protective wrapper off of here. All right, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. I'm trying to watch the chat as much as I can, but I know that I've missed a lot. And the hardest part has been getting this. Oh, there it is. I found it. So just being careful to open this so that I don't get any nicks inside the clay. And I'm going to bring this over. All right, and using my blade, I'm actually going to remove this piece. And place that over here. And you probably want to go in with a paper towel or a baby wipe, get that residue off. But let's pretend. Let's just pretend that it's not there. Okay, so which pattern should we do? I'm like loving these daisies lately. So I think that I want to do just some daisy shapes, and I want to show you how with just a couple different shapes and sizes of cutters you can create more shapes. So this daisy pattern, I can cut through there and also use like a double cutter situation where I can cut through here, and in doing so I'm creating sort of the bottom and the top of the shape. Let me show you what I mean. Going in with some cornstarch. And again, I can use my roller to get that in there. Pull that back out. Now I'm going to go in with my smaller shape. And I really want to line this up. Let's see here. Oh no, I moved it. That looks about right. All right, I'm actually going to cut the clay here and move this piece away. And now I have two shapes. Which I can separate by gently. I can go in with a tool to sort of gently separate these. so now I have a cutout daisy and something that can go on the top like that. All right, so think outside the box when it comes to your cutters. You may be able to make more shapes than is first evident from the cutter pack that you bought. I love this sort of see-through daisy. All right, so moving on, I am going to show you how to use up all the extra clay. So here's from our cloud piece. I ended up with this. We are going to use every bit of this clay. We're not going to waste this, but it is going to look a little different. I'm actually going to just work with half of this. All right, so I have my leftover clay, and I'm going to roll this out. Again, I can add some cornstarch if I feel like it's wanting to stick. And I can use this with my thickness guides or without. And what you'll see you get are sort of marbly patterns. So I can go in with a cutter and you get just sort of a very pretty marbled pattern. And that will vary based on what your scrap clay looks like. So this piece, what I can do is actually cut up that scrap clay like this, and that will make the pieces smaller. And mush them all together. And let's see what we get. All right, so here I've rolled that out very thin. This is probably about a 3 mm thickness. And then I can just go in with a cutter and use my same cutter here. And then choose where you want this to cut. And then you have this, which looks super cute. And then I have this left over, and then I can repeat the process again. The more I repeat it, the more the patterns will get larger. They will get more marbly looking. And I can roll this out again. And it's sticking, so I need some cornstarch. Roll this out again, cut it again. Okay, so your very first cuts from the slab will have that pattern kind of saved in there, and then subsequent cuts will have the same colors, but just more of a marbly look, which I love. All right, any questions? Let me bring out some of our pieces here. I'll show you, we'll do the parade of earrings here. Any questions in the chat that I may have missed?
Yes, Stephanie. Could you speak a little bit to when you're first working with the clay, if you see some cracking or flaking and how to condition and so on? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so this clay with the patterns already in it is pre-conditioned. And so just like I showed you in real time, you should be able to roll it out and cut it just like I did. If you're getting a little bit of cracking, you may want to put the clay in warm water, not super, super hot boiling water because we don't want to cook it, but you want to put the clay in some warm water for maybe 5 minutes, and that can help it avoid cracking. Also, you want to make sure that you're storing your clay properly. So this piece that I ended up with over here, I would just put that back inside this thing that it came in. And this is like the perfect little vessel to store your leftover clay. You want to keep the air off of it as much as possible. And it should work forever. I have clay that is still conditioned after many, many months. So it shouldn't be a problem. Now, if you are working with solid clay like these, feel free to condition these as you would any other polymer clay, but it still should be fine to roll it out straight from the package. All right.
We have a couple of questions about sanding the clay, sanding the edges.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes out of the oven, let me show you a piece. You may, depending on if you were able to hit table with your cutter, meaning getting your cutter all the way through, you may be left with a little foot on your cooked pieces. Try to clean that up as much as possible before it goes in the oven. After it comes out of the oven, though, if you have any more sort of imperfections, you can sand that away. So I have just a regular nail file. You can sand any sort of jagged bits off. If you have a sander like a Dremel that has a sanding attachment, that works wonderfully. It sort of really zips those edges off really quickly. But I've found in working with this, there's not a lot of sanding needed. Just sort of for perfecting it on the side, you might want to sand using a nail file or like a rotary sanding bit. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, we have one that I don't know the answer to. So the question is from Sean. Can you use a baked piece of polymer clay that has a center cut out and use that as a bezel, then add UV resin in the center of your baked piece of clay?
Wow, well, that's getting really advanced. So we must have some serious crafters with us asking those kind of questions. Yes, there's nothing stopping you from combining this with your other jewelry crafting materials. And one of those materials is UV resin. UV resin and polymer clay work hand in hand very beautifully. So UV resin can be used, and I'm just going to clear off a little space here to show you. It can be used as a coating on top of your clay, because when it comes out of the oven, you can see it has this beautiful matte texture. If you want it to be glossy instead, using a UV resin on top of that is great. So if people that aren't familiar with UV resin, this is a liquid that pours out of this bottle that only cures in UV light. And so this is also sold at Michael's too, but you would just lay down a very thin bit of UV resin. You can go in with an old paintbrush on top of that and kind of work that to the edges. I'm going to go right over these holes that are already baked because we can puncture through that. All right, and so that is how we're going to get a glossy finish. Now to cure this won't dry. This isn't glue that'll just dry in the air. To cure this, you need a UV lamp, or you need to let it sit in the sun. The sun has plenty of UV rays to do this. Or if you're working at night on a cloudy day, you can use a UV lamp, which also sold at Michael's in the UV resin section. You can you see how that's like glowing? But you want to cure that, and it'll cure to a glossy glass-like finish that lasts forever. And that's how you can get some of your pieces to be glossy, and you can use it matte if you want, just straight how it comes out of the oven. So you want to cure this under UV light for a couple minutes. Now, the question that our master expert maker asked was not, can you use it as a glossy top coat, but can you use it as a bezel? And the answer is yes. So here's a shape that has a shape in the middle, we could absolutely fill that with UV resin and put something else in there. I can put beads in there. I can put glitter in there, flakes. I can put shell. I can put just about anything you can think of, you can put in UV resin, and by essentially making your own bezels. If you're interested in learning more about UV resin, we just did a class last week. We have classes monthly on UV resin if you want to learn how to use that product and do a deep dive. So here's 1 minute under the UV resin lamp, and you can see what a beautiful glossy finish that gave us. Now I painted right over these holes. If I need to remake those holes, I would just go in with my drill and just sort of pop, like crack right through that thin layer. Like that already did it. But you can see the difference in texture here, glossy versus matte. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I want to thank you all for joining us. This was amazing. We do UV resin classes and polymer clay classes often. So double check michaels.com. Would love to see you on the next class. Each class we show you, we try to show you new techniques and ideas so that can only add to your inspiration and creativity. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one. Thank you, guys.